But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it.
It is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies-infested hen house.
And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
Yeah, they have nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement?
For decades, a certain show has reigned supreme in daytime television, a glittering fortress of opinion where hosts seem to operate with absolute immunity. Their words echoed across millions of homes, shaping narratives and often dismantling reputations. They believed they were untouchable, that their powerful platform shielded them from any real consequences, allowing them to freely cast judgment and unleash unchecked accusations. This was a show synonymous with bold statements, dramatic confrontations, and an almost sacred belief in its own infallible truth. But then, a seismic tremor hit the media landscape, a legal shockwave that threatened to unravel decades of assumed power and expose the carefully constructed illusion of their invincibility. This isn't just about a heated debate or a ratings war, it's the astonishing story of a $100 million lawsuit, a direct no-holds-barred challenge to the very heart of mainstream media, and how a surprising champion from the independent world ignited a firestorm that changed everything.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stop looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side, and if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do, and no one's critically thinking about this.
Joe Rogan is the gateway drug for young men that thought they were Democrats to become MAGA. Joe Rogan is the bridge. And on that bridge, they'll see RFK. They'll see Elon Musk.
At the very core of this explosive dispute were not seasoned politicians or controversial figures, but a group far more vulnerable, 5,000 high school and college students. These weren't just any students. They were young, conservative voices, full of energy and eagerness to engage with ideas, traveling across the country in the summer heat, enduring expensive flights, and sacrificing precious leisure time just to be part of something meaningful. They converged for Turning Point USA's Youth Summit, a massive gathering dedicated to exploring conservative principles, fostering leadership, and encouraging civic participation. These were teenagers as young as 16 or 17, making a conscious choice to spend their valuable time engaging in civic discourse, to hear from speakers who challenged prevailing narratives, and to connect with peers who shared similar values. Yet, when the show decided to cover this vibrant youth gathering, they didn't report it. Instead, they smeared it. They tossed out wild, unsubstantiated claims suggesting the Youth Summit had ties to dangerous, even violent groups, effectively branding these innocent kids as criminals or extremists on national television. Imagine being a teenager, passionately invested in your beliefs and participating in a legitimate event, only to hear on a major network that your pursuit of knowledge made you look like a dangerous threat. The sheer audacity of these baseless accusations aimed directly at a demographic that truly deserved protection and respect was an outrageous line that simply could not be uncrossed, etching a shadow over their futures. The aftermath of that reckless commentary was a slow-burning fuse, quickly igniting into a blazing inferno. Charlie Kirk, founder and CEO of Turning Point USA, accustomed to being a target in the political arena, drew a clear line in the sand. He wasn't going to let this slide, especially when it involved innocent students whose reputations were now at stake. The first step was a demand for an apology, a public retraction for the damaging claims. But what the show offered was far from a genuine act of remorse. It was a hesitant, fear-driven backtracking, a thinly veiled attempt to mitigate their legal exposure rather than express true regret for the harm caused. As Kirk himself pointedly articulated, they didn't backtrack because they were truly sorry. They did it because the looming threat of legal action scared them. Their apology, delivered with all the sincerity of a strategy session designed to minimize liability, only solidified Kirk's resolve. This wasn't just about him anymore, a public figure who could absorb attacks. The question became, do our students accept it? And with that powerful redirection, the entire narrative shifted. This wasn't a personal slight, it was a righteous battle for justice for the next generation, a refusal to allow powerful media personalities to drag innocent young people through the mud with baseless accusations and walk away unscathed. It was this pivotal moment, this calculated, insincere apology, that transformed a grievous insult into a thunderous $100 million lawsuit, igniting a media firestorm that nobody, especially the show itself, saw coming.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept The View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis.
As the lawsuit exploded, sending reverberations through the entire daytime TV empire, a powerful voice from the independent media world stepped decisively into the fray. Joe Rogan. Rogan, renowned for his unvarnished honesty, his direct approach, and his unwavering no BS attitude, didn't sugarcoat his take on the show. He ripped into it with raw, brutal accuracy, calling out exactly what it had become. He famously described their dynamic as nothing short of a rabies-infested henhouse. A chaotic and irrational environment where logical debate goes to die a quick and painful death. Rogan didn't just criticize, he meticulously shattered the illusion of reasoned discourse. He pointed out the show's bizarre, repetitive pattern of always bringing on one token conservative woman just to yell at her, citing damning examples. From Meghan McCain to a former Survivor contestant whose voice was consistently drowned out. This wasn't just about conservative guests being interrupted. It was about the systematic silencing of dissenting opinions, the deliberate trampling of truth in the name of manufactured entertainment and ideological conformity. Rogan's incisive analysis wasn't merely commentary, it was a complete and utter dismantling of the show's perceived intellectual credibility, exposing their deeply ingrained ideological bubble and their blatant disregard for genuine open discussion.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sonny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
I have no hate for Joy Behar. If I saw her, I'd give her a hug. I'd probably say the same thing about me if I was her. You're worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is fucking great, and Joe Rogan believes in dragons!
Rogan's critique then narrowed, zeroing in on specific glaring missteps by one of the lead hosts, Sonny Hostin. As a trained lawyer and former prosecutor, Hostin should have been acutely aware of the weight and consequences of her words, yet she seemed to disregard them entirely. Rogan replayed a clip where Hostin, in a desperate and seemingly clumsy attempt to discredit independent media, blithely declared, "You should trust us, not Joe Rogan who believes in dragons." Rogan, visibly shaking his head in disbelief on his own show, pointed out the staggering inaccuracy and intellectual laziness of her comment. The original clip in question wasn't Rogan claiming mythical beasts. It was a guest discussing fascinating, yet specific ancient reptile sightings, a nuanced conversation twisted into a cartoonish smear designed to mock and delegitimize. Hostin, a lawyer who should inherently understand the power of her words and the need for factual accuracy, was clearly more interested in inflicting damage and creating a viral soundbite than in upholding journalistic integrity. This careless remark effectively handed Kirk a massive advantage in court by providing clear evidence of a host throwing around wild, evidence-free claims on national television. But the infamous dragon comment wasn't her only slip. Rogan also highlighted Hostin's chillingly dismissive, uneducated white women remark made while discussing voting patterns. This statement, dripping with undisguised elitism and profound out-of-touch disdain for a significant portion of the American population, became another searing indictment of the show's profound disconnect from reality. Rogan didn't just mock her, he exposed her complete lack of empathy and her troubling willingness to stereotype millions based solely on her own ideological biases. This wasn't just a misstep, it was a glaring example of the very smug, reckless hosts who would rather go viral than tell the truth.
But with that show, that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her, and they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show. I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race. The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings. Everybody's just individuals. That's a very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
That's sort of, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, who are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart, but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
Then, with surgical precision, Rogan peeled back the curtain on something even more profoundly disturbing, something that undermined the show's very foundation, the illusion behind their studio audience. He explained, with a bluntness that resonated far beyond the studio walls, that most of the clapping, cheering, and gasping reactions seen on screen aren't from genuine, enthusiastic fans. They're from hired seat fillers. That's right, Rogan stated unequivocally. Paid to sit and react on cue. He elaborated further, painting a stark picture. The real fans of the show probably can't even leave the house anymore, implying a demographic so niche and immobile that the show resorted to fabricating its very atmosphere and perceived popularity. This revelation wasn't just a punchline designed for entertainment, it was a complete and devastating dismantling of the show's credibility, exposing how it wasn't just out of touch, but actively manufacturing its own popularity and engagement. It highlighted a stark and unsettling reality. The show was meticulously creating a performance, a carefully staged theatrical production, pretending to be a spontaneous, genuine conversation. It was silencing real voices and real opinions while manufacturing applause and feigned reactions. This exposed the show's core deception, revealing a hollow shell of manufactured engagement, further cementing its image as a production utterly disconnected from the very audience they claimed to represent and speak for.
Not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So, because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
Those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, the fans, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point. Most of those people can't leave the house. Like, they're probably immobile.
Right.
Rogan wasn't just delivering commentary, he was leading a powerful reckoning, positioning Charlie Kirk's lawsuit not just as a typical legal battle, but as a symbolic pivotal clash in a much larger ongoing media war. He pointed to the growing and increasingly stark divide between traditional legacy media outlets like this show, with their carefully constructed filters, reliance on teleprompters, and tightly controlled gatekeepers, and the burgeoning new wave of independent voices. Podcasts, grassroots movements, and direct-to-consumer platforms that reach people without intermediaries. This monumental lawsuit, Rogan powerfully argued, represented the collapse of an old system that believed it could say whatever it wanted, smear anyone, and walk away without consequence. They don't control the narrative anymore, Rogan declared, with conviction, articulating what millions across the country were already thinking and feeling. This case became more than a mere lawsuit. It transformed into a resonating warning shot, a battle cry for true accountability in an era where misinformation and unsubstantiated claims run rampant across screens. It forced everyone, from media executives to casual viewers, to confront the chilling, unspoken question: why are shows like this allowed to make wild accusations without a shred of verifiable evidence or facing any repercussions? The uncomfortable silence that often followed this question was deafening, proving Rogan's point that the old guard was indeed losing its once firm grip on the truth and the public narrative.
This is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest fucking statement. Like, you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife biologist, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't believe
the other
Joy
part of what he
Behar
said
didn't
was
weigh.
there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with giant reptiles. And then there's also, listen,
It doesn't make sense to me that a middle-aged woman could be dumb.
when you're worried about losing your job and you're worried about podcasts taking over and who's the source.
As the legal battle continues to unfold, one thing is abundantly clear: daytime TV, and indeed the broader media landscape, will never truly be the same again. This wasn't some slow drip scandal that could be contained. It was a wildfire ignited by Charlie Kirk's audacious demand for justice, and fanned into an inferno by Joe Rogan's relentless commitment to truth-telling. The show, once widely seen as an unassailable media fortress, an untouchable institution, is now unequivocally the public face of a media war they never saw coming and were utterly unprepared to fight. This lawsuit isn't just about a staggering $100 million price tag. It's about setting a critical, far-reaching precedent, a legal reminder that defamation is not and never has been free speech, and that smearing innocent people on live air has a profound, tangible, and financially devastating cost. Media outlets everywhere are watching with clenched jaws and bated breath, because if this show loses this landmark case, it could usher in a truly new era where every single word uttered on live television is just one step away from a direct courtroom subpoena. For the first time in a very long time, the old guard of mainstream media is genuinely scared, not of ratings drops or political backlash, but of a generation rising up and saying, enough is enough. Rogan didn't just destroy their logic, he utterly exposed the ingrained hypocrisy that fuels their entire show. They incessantly talk about fairness, truth, and accountability, yet they showed none of it when they brazenly targeted thousands of innocent students. This battle isn't about silencing the media, it's about protecting the truth, defending integrity, and demanding consequences for deliberate falsehoods. Because when unchecked arrogance finally meets unwavering accountability, the truth wins, and this time, it won loudly, leaving the show's smug superiority, its scripted chaos, and its manufactured echo chamber applause to crumble spectacularly into ashes.